what am I doing with my life? And really that was the defining moment for me, was losing my dad. I wanted to do something like completely different.
You can't make the wrong choice. There's not time and there's not the capability to necessarily bounce back from that. Welcome to Built4Profit Podcast, where entrepreneurs share real stories and strategies that actually work. We're here to inspire, challenge, and give you the playbook to profit with purpose. Let's get into it. Let's do it. Today, we're talking about a topic that no one likes to talk about, but especially for women, it's something that we need to be talking about.
Absolutely. Our guest today is going to talk about assisting people in senior care. And what's interesting about that, Elizabeth, 70% of the people in facilities are women.
Yes. And the type of placement that we're talking about, we thought we knew what this business did. And then we realized we had never heard of this before. And we almost guarantee that you haven't either. So we have Liza Cerame with us, and she's talking about assisted living locators. So Liza, welcome to the Built4Profit Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both, Shay and Elizabeth, for having me here. So Assisted Living Locators, think of it as your senior concierge. We are here to help guide and navigate families and seniors through the process of looking for different senior living options when it's no longer safe to be at home. We are absolutely free to the family, so our services come completely unbiased. We are here to really help and guide. A lot of compassion and empathy goes through it, at least for myself speaking personally. That's really where it comes from.
Okay. Help me bridge this gap. Your company is not placing in-home care. Is it all in a separate brick and mortar? Or do you help them decide, hey, probably in-home care is the best for you? Or how about this facility? Let's look at that. Talk us through a little bit, like, pretend I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So we help really across everything. So if we find that they would better be suited at home, then we help connect them with in-home care agencies that are licensed. And so making sure that they're going to a trusted partner of ours that we've vetted, that is local, that's within their budget. We help kind of vet through those options for them. So ultimately, I'm really just kind of seeing where the family is coming from, what their story is, and making sure that the solution aligns with who they are and who their loved one is. So if in-home care is going to be the best solution, and that's really where their heart is pulling them, that's where I'm going to guide them. You know, it doesn't really do much for me in terms of business wise, but it really does help me in terms of building that trust in the community. And I want to do the right thing, right? Like if that was my own loved one, I would do the same thing. I would point them in the direction of home because that's where they can be cared for. They have the budget for it. They have the means for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a big growing need. And you hear about it all the time. And you're right, it is kind of taboo because, how many times do you hear, I'm never doing that. I'm never doing that. And all the emotion and guilt and the overwhelmedness of a loved one figuring that out. And so going back to what you said, make sure I heard you right. Because sometimes, I have a filter. You were saying that you provide these services free to the client.
Correct. I do.
We're all confused now. Shay's got a question.
I want to keep my doors open, essentially, right? And so I don't know if you're familiar with the Place for Mom. It's similar concept, except for the fact that we are boots on the ground. We're feet on the street. We're very much hands-on in the process because, this type of search deserves more than just the internet. You need somebody who is a local, somebody who understands the nuances of the changing environment of a senior living community. So it's free because we go and we vet these places ahead of time. We set up these agreements to where now it's not just, it's the community that's actually, paying for our services. So we're like marketers. We're like a marketing arm for these communities, essentially. But we don't have any bias to them. We really look at our families and your loved ones are going to be our center. They're the ones that we're looking at. We're understanding them. We do the whole intake and meet them where they're at and see that they would be a good fit. So it's essentially like matchmaking.
And like I said, and I appreciate that. But yeah, you had me at free. I was like, I think I heard that. I need to clarify before I start making rumors.
Yeah.
So Liza, so you were having coffee one morning
and you looked up and said, I'm going to go into senior care matchmaking business. So tell us, how did you get here? Is that what you Googled? Senior care matchmaking business?
You know, you can Google so many things, but really, ultimately, what I was doing at this point, I had experienced a life-changing event that really just kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. So by trade, I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. And at the center of what I do is caring for people. I went on to be a faculty and taught and was an educator. I became a mentor for those who were seeking to advance their degrees in nursing. And then a really defining point for me was the passing of my dad. And I apologize if I get emotional, but it really stopped me kind of dead in my tracks to where, what am I doing with my life? Like, I've worked for over 15 years taking care of people, including my own family. And I just really had to come like full circle. What did I want? I wanted to be more present for my kids. I wanted to be more present for myself and still maintain this purpose of meaningfulness. Like, how can I take what I've learned and my skills and bring it outside of the hospital walls or outside of the nursing school? How can I do it and essentially be my own boss and help people? So really, that was the defining moment for me, was losing my dad. And I actually did a lot of research. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to do something like completely different. So I, just being a mentor myself and knowing the importance of having sometimes that guide, right? It led me to looking for a franchise and stumbling upon a franchise consultant. And similar to the concept of what I do, they vet the process for their clients, essentially. They find out about them, what makes you tick, what makes you motivated, what gives you purpose. And I have to say, I absolutely love this franchise consultant. There was never any push. There was just really an opportunity to learn more about who I was and what made me feel good. And so she vetted 3 franchises after learning about me, that I'm a mentor, that I teach, that 2 transformational events in my life was the birth of my first child and then the loss of my dad. And so it was somewhat of an eclectic array of franchises. But when it came down to it and really just kind of sitting with it more, praying and thinking, and sometimes I get into that analysis paralysis, but ultimately it was the one that made the most sense to me. And it's a little, now that I think about it, I feel like it was the best choice because it's still part of my healing. Like, for me to be able to help, I still continue to self-heal.
Mm-hmm. And Liza, I'm extremely biased with my background. I mean, that's like, as an advisor, the number one thing we would see when people start, pulling assets was usually some kind of care situation. There's all kinds of fundings and different things for, like you said, but the fact that your number one channel is to really to put them in a community, and you offer both options. That says a lot about your character and how you show up for families, because that's a really big time. The time I've gone through it with clients, not even to the extent that you do a different kind of, mine was on the financial side, but this very emotional. It's scary for the person going in there, because nobody starts off and go, yep, when I get older, I can't wait to go to the home. Right?
Exactly. No, you're completely 100% correct. I think there's so much fear factor and understanding what these places look like. They hear assisted living, they feel like all of their freedom is going to be stripped away from them. But it's really quite the opposite, honestly. It's really just assistance based on what you need, and that will keep you safe. And I think it's about perspective, understanding, and really just being educated on what's out there.
And do you see that most people don't really know all the options, Liza?
Yes, I have pretty much run into a lot of people coming in saying, I don't know where to start. I don't even know if this is the right place. I'm just hoping that I didn't just pick some random person off of Google. And I did have somebody just like that, didn't know where to start, helping their loved one. And as soon as they kind of told me their story, I got into a little bit more of the details of where they were at. They were comforted to know that I knew the social worker, and that I knew them by name. And then so when I messaged and said, hey, I'm working with this loved one, we are looking at some options. Can you just give me an update on what's going on and how I can essentially fill that gap. So I'm kind of like that middle person here, taking a lot of that medical jargon with my nursing background and translating it into something that is understandable a lot of the times, right? And breaking it down into smaller steps.
So going back to smaller steps, this is something
Right.
new to you. You
Yes.
were more on, I would say, employee side. Now you get to fire yourself and hire yourself back. You're part of the Can
Yeah.
Do Club, right? The Can Do Cake Club. And
That's
so tell me about that. You started, what was the challenges, the opportunities? How did you put this service in your community?
right. So I appreciate that question because sales is not my strength, to say the least. And I'm just going to leave it at that. When they do the franchisee vetting process, they go through a series of interviews and meeting the other franchise owners and talking to the owner and the founder. And so they really want to vet to see the person that they're working with is ultimately going to bring them some success, right? And I feel like when they did the test, my sales was probably the very last, at the very end of it all. And just kind of saying that, this is probably something you're going to have to work hard at. I still feel like it works and I'm still being true to myself. There's opportunities where I feel they look at me and they start to identify me as the nurse. I come in and I used to think of this as like a negative thing, to be soft. And as I changed my verbiage to, I'm not just soft, but I'm gentle, I'm strong. I come to a point where I'm seeing them like heart to heart, right? It's not just eye level and I'm looking at number signs. I'm looking at a person who's going through a tough time. If I were there, I'd want to be taking care of myself. And I think it just really helps to build the brand in a way where it's establishing true trust. And I think that's what sets us apart, is that although we are a nationwide brand and franchise, in each of our specific locations, we are just that. We are very personal. And so I really loved that the franchise happened to align so well with who I was personally.
And Liza, I appreciate you being so genuine and authentic in that conversation. And I'm going to say the word for you. So remember, you liked me when you first met me. Okay, it's this really scary word that we worry about sometimes as entrepreneurs. And you know what I'm going to say. Sometimes she doesn't know what I'm going to
Thank you.
say. Salesy. That's the
Salesy.
word you danced all around, isn't it? Like, we don't want anybody to think that we're salesy, and that's mindset,
Right.
Whereas we
Yeah.
showing up passionately, serving a community and solving a problem. You're meeting people
Right.
when they have the most probably question marks with, you know, all the dynamics. Think of dynamics in family relationships. You got relationships, fears, finance. You got all the good stuff going on there, Liza.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh,
And I love that, Shay, that you just defined that in a way, because I'm probably going to use that It's for sure, because it does. It's really what we do. And ultimately, for us to stick around, we have to be able to manage our business and essentially close these experiences, or close the loop on these experiences so that it reflects and we're able to again keep our doors open.
Yeah. I want to piggyback off that because a lot of times, if someone has moved to a new location or they're in a situation for the first time, which for you or your clients, it's usually the latter, I'm assuming. But, it's like when I moved here, everything I was trying to find, I was Googling, right? And just as a simple example, a dentist, and I made the wrong choice twice. And that's we can laugh about that. It's
She
the
Googled me.
dentist. That's how she found me. Right.
Yeah.
It- Not a big deal. That can't be your experience when you're looking for long-term care for your parents or some kind of aid for them. You can't make the wrong choice. There's not time and there's not the capability to necessarily bounce back from that. And so, to Shay's point, your role is vital. And it's one that people will say, I wish I'd known about this sooner, or I wish I'd known this when my parents were in it. And so, I know you don't need us to advocate for you, but coming from it is not sales for you to be sharing this. It's a necessity because people don't know their options and they want someone to guide them. They want someone to say, hey, I know I've been in all these buildings. Let me tell you about them. Let's take a tour. Let's hear about what your mom or your dad would want. So, I'm just like, please, Liza, do what you're doing and shout it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And it's just changed that mindset. We live life inside our head. And we talk about a lot of that. I bet you changed a little bit of your mindset being an entrepreneur now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be
Yes.
interested in hearing what other shifts have you had to make coming out of that space, because being an employee and being an entrepreneur, very different. So what other shifts have you made?
Yeah, hiring out for people that maybe have services and expertise in certain things, like a CPA, a good bookkeeper. And I just recently hired an executive assistant and just helping me stay aligned, keeping me, on point with everything and just really organization. Because as an entrepreneur or a business owner, you have thoughts coming in at you miles a minute. And so it really feels collaborative. And that's really what I want, because in order for me to like step outside and to be in the community and to build those relationships and network and everything like that, I need to have organization, managing the books, taking care of the taxes towards the end of the year, all that stuff. Am I the right entity? I actually had to change my entity. I'm like, oh man. And she was just saying, Liza, we can save you so much more money if you did this. I'm like, well, show me the savings, show me the money that I can save. Let's do it. So I was all for that. It's important to know what you can do and what you're strong at, and then to hand off some of those things that can be done by somebody else who can probably do it quicker, faster, and even better. And that's hard sometimes when you have to relinquish some roles where you feel like you can do it.
So people out there, the ones sitting on the fence, that's probably the way of putting it. Because you sound like you analyze things a little bit, which I can respect, because you're an analyzer. Takes one to know one, girl. So I mean, I'm kind of with you on it. And because you weigh all these things out, pros and cons, and there's some point in time, even they say the pros and the cons, the list are equal or whatever, but you just have to make the leap. So
Yeah.
what made you just commit to going into it, and what advice would you give someone that's on that fence?
It's just like I would even tell my families, have that conversation early and with people that you trust. I can tell you, I probably talked my husband's ear off about it. And he's more just like, I'm ready to jump on that wagon. Let's go. And I'm like, but what about this? What do you think about this? How about this? Let me tell you, are you going to come to this meeting with me? Let's do it all together. Because I feel like obviously two heads are better than one. Despite where their path or their experiences are coming from, I think it's always I feel like it's very important to at least provide it all out on the table. I feel like I can service this. I feel like I can do this. I believe I can do this. I don't know that I'm going to hit the ground running and have all these amazing placements or anything, but I feel like I can make an impact.
So luckily I haven't had to be in this world. I mean, knock on wood, thank goodness. But I do know that it's an expensive venture to have your loved one in these care facilities. So I know it's different per state, but in general, could you share with the audience, are there other resources that can help fund if someone is going to go into a home of some sort? Or is it like, if I'm looking at my options, this is the price tag to be there, and that's it?
Yeah. So the way that most communities they work, they have a community fee that's an upfront cost and it's a one-time fee. As far as funding and helping with funding, families and individuals, they'll rally up together and help the loved one, or they're typically paying out of Social Security. If they were a veteran, there are veteran resources such as aid and attendance that will help the veteran themselves as well as their spouse. Care insurance, and that's why it's super important to touch base with financial advisors early and really plan for those events for the future. I'm
I mean,
sorry.
you and Shay, you guys could just advocate for long-term care insurance left and right.
I have one.
Yeah.
Almost weekly basis. And this is not an exaggeration. So
And when we know better, we do better. And talking about business entities, certain entities, you can write it off as a executive carve out. Your business can take care of that expense. There's strategies on that.
Oh,
We had
I
to go
didn't know
with some
that.
training on that. But yeah, it's a lot of advantages. And you have a C corp. A lot of people that do franchises of Rob's, right? You can write that off dollar for dollar for you and your spouse. There's a way of getting that done.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now that you say that, we do have individuals who have like annuities and things that they can pay for through that as well. So annuities, savings, retirement funds, things like that, they can also use and tap in. Sometimes they have trusts. They have a house that they're downsizing and moving. So they have a house that they can use to help pay.
Yeah. I would imagine. That's the scariest sounding part of it, besides the emotional aspect of the gravity of the situation. There's a lot of moving parts on that. Liza,
Yeah.
you've been a pleasure to visit with, especially something so passionate. You can hear your passion and your why shows up very much so. You're definitely
Thank
out
you.
there making an impact in your community with something that is, wow, very personal, very growing, and hard to navigate at best.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And being so true to the challenges, because people can relate to that story one way or another, where they are in their journey. So as we close out, any last thoughts or anything you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, just for those who are looking to venture into doing a franchise or owning a business, take that time to reconnect with yourself and find if this is something that aligns with you. Because really, ultimately, when you're signing into that FDD, you're looking at a long-term agreement, right? And although franchises can be sold, you don't want to have to go through that process again. I feel like take the time to vet it yourself. Maybe consider using a franchise consultant or coach, somebody who can guide you. And if that relationship doesn't work, then look for somebody else, because, you don't want to shortchange yourself. You want to make an investment in yourself that you feel, it works for you, that you can see yourself going far in it, and that you are passionate about. And in terms of for families and loved ones out there, we are here, Assisted Living Locators, nationwide. Again, a free service to the families and to their loved ones, and we're happy to help. We are your local senior concierge service, and we are here to guide you.
We are proud that today's episode was brought to us by Imperial Design and Display. Elizabeth, when you walk into a retail store and you see all the products, the merchandise, the racks, all that good stuff.
Yes, everything that distracts.
There you go. That's what Imperial Design and Display does. They're a U.S. manufacturing company, which big for me, all right, made in the USA. They do everything from design, installation to program management. They get it done.
Yeah, and the caliber of brands that they work with is very impressive. Not trying to be a name dropper.
Drop some names.
Here we go. We're talking GameStop, Williams-Sonoma, Best Buy, Home Depot, Caribou Coffee, and some high caliber brands.
Right. And not only do they make it look good, it's functional and they're cost conscious.
Which we love. Mm-hmm. So we are proud to have them as one of our sponsors for the Built for Profit podcast. That is Imperial Design and Display.
And Elizabeth, I have to give a little shout out. I love a good tagline. They have a good tagline. Let's move at the speed of retail together. So imperialdesigndisplay.com and click on the link to get more information about Imperial Design Display.
We'll see you in the next episode.